A big fear is that if we streamline a program that's as rich as Memoria Press, are we cheapening our child's education? And I've come to realize that no, we're not. It means that we're stewarding their education. We're called to be good stewards. We're called to help our children flourish. And part of that flourishing is having a balanced life. So I wanted to chat today about a question that comes up a lot. A lot of moms feel very overwhelmed when looking at Memoria Press's full packages, their core sets. And a lot of people want to know, can you realistically teach a full core? Buy the package, don't customize, just teach everything that's in it. And yes, it is possible, but I wouldn't recommend it. A few years ago, a friend shared a picture of an old Memoria Press catalog that she had, and it was really eye-opening to see what the packages looked like when they first came out. You can actually still see this online. There's an archived version of MP's website. I'll post a link down below, but you can see the original books that were in the packages, the old lesson plans, and it's really eye-opening to see how much has been added over the years. And a lot of those additions were because brick and mortar teachers have requested things, homeschoolers have requested things, and in responding to those requests, we've ended up with these really full packages. Now, MP will be the first to tell you that you do not have to do everything. They'll even let you know that their teachers in their brick and mortar school don't get to every last thing in the lesson plans. But I think Memoria has kind of got themselves into a tough spot, because if they dial it back or say, okay, these few things are the absolute bottom line things that are essential, people are going to get frustrated because everyone has a different opinion of what is essential, and some people will be upset that certain things are included or aren't included. And so the only thing really that they can do is what they're currently doing, which is leave everything in the packages and simply allow people to customize them either on the website or with a phone call or email. And by the way, make sure that you do call or email if you need more customization than the website allows. That way you can still get a package discount. And I have more info on that in a video, which we will put in one of these corners. So why do I feel that streamlining Memoria is so important? Why don't we just push through, do it all, at least try to do it all? We take homeschooling very seriously. It's a very important part of our family's life. We've been doing this for 13 years. But in order for a family's life to be balanced, each part of our life has to be in proportion to the whole. And that includes this part we call homeschooling. If homeschooling is taking over the entire day and keeping us from other important things, then we're out of balance. Homeschooling is out of proportion. Now, keeping homeschooling in its proper proportion is especially hard because my own pride, fear, comparisons, my own plans can all very easily get in the way, but I have to remember to use the curriculum in a way that is best for each child and for myself in this moment. A big fear is that if we streamline a program that's as rich as Memoria Press, are we cheapening our child's education? And I've come to realize that no, we're not. It means that we're stewarding their education. We're called to be good stewards. We're called to help our children flourish. And part of that flourishing is having a balanced life, having time to go outside, work on hobbies and projects, time to just be. And this balance becomes possible when we're good stewards of our family's time. Making sure that our homeschooling fits our family and what we're realistically able to do. And what we're realistically able to do can change from season to season, but that word realistically is really important. Our family has 4 hours to devote to school each day. So I cannot try to fit 6 hours worth of work into it. Honestly, I can't even try to fit 4 hours worth in because There are always going to be distractions and interruptions, assignments that take longer. So streamlining is really important, but it can still be hard to figure out how to do it. You know, a lot of moms ask, how do I decide what to use, what to let go of? How do I make this fit my family without my kids missing out on something that they're going to need in the future? So what is really being asked is, how do I know what is essential? And to answer that question, I asked myself another question. What is essential for being a well-formed person? You know, being able to find major countries and cities on a map, that's essential. Memorizing every capital and country for Europe, Asia, and Africa, that's not essential. Being able to appreciate and categorize nature in a basic way, that's essential. Memorizing all the orders of insects and example members of each, that's not essential. But then a mom asked recently, well, what do you leave out when it seems like everything is essential preparation if you want your child to study something like Dante in high school? So let's break this down a little bit. What does Dante assume of his readers? He assumes that they have a knowledge of theology, mythology, classical history, and medieval history. So your faith studies, the Greek myths, the famous men series, Homer, Virgil, medieval history, those would all be keepers if you have the goal of studying Dante in high school. Now, I will say that my current college student did not have the opportunity to study Virgil before he studied Dante in high school, but he still thoroughly enjoyed the Dante study and he did really well in it. Even among these keepers, you do still have some flexibility. So this question, what is essential for being a well-formed person, helps me decide what things we're going to study in a formal way, what things we're not, and it also helps me decide how we're going to study. 2 of my children are studying the Greek myths this year. Now, Memoria's goal for that course is to help children become familiar with these characters and events and stories that have influenced, 2,000 years of history and literature. But that goal can be fully accomplished by listening to those stories on audiobook, reciting the drill questions from the back of the teacher's manual, and simply talking about some of those overarching themes, the nature of the one true God compared to the Greek gods. That's really all that's needed for that course to do what it's meant to do. Now, 2 of my older children are studying the Odyssey right now. It all just happened to line up that everyone's studying Greece in some way this year. But instead of memorizing huge sections of the text, we simply memorized the opening line. And, those huge quotation sections on the tests, I make those optional bonus points. We don't do the suggested essays, but we're continually reviewing the people, the places, the events that we've read about so far, and then they're revisiting those with those overarching themes when they watch Memoria's Odyssey DVDs. So they're truly learning this work, and they're building so much long-term retention, even though we're not doing it as it's laid out in the lesson plans. But going back to what we study, what does our family consider essential? What do we use from Memoria Press? So in kindergarten through 2nd grade, we do reading, math, cursive, and read-alouds, plus the poem and art card. We also do our group faith studies. In 3rd through 6th, we do Latin, math, literature, and history. My 7th through 12th graders do Latin, math, literature, history, composition, and science. For electives, we use hobbies, life interests for those. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean that we're using the 4th grade classical studies in 4th grade. I just start the various sequences when each child is ready, and then we go through them at the pace that they need. You'll also notice that we don't do copybook, timeline, science, or geography formally in K through 6. We address geography as we come up to it in our classical studies, same with learning important dates. And for science, I just keep Memoria's nature studies books available for free reading. And we also get those Peterson field guides that come with a lot of those sets. And the kids just read those in their free time. They look up information on something they've seen outside, things like that. The one geography that I do try to study formally is states and capitals. We haven't been the best about that one. We gave it a shot, but life got in the way. So I'm hoping to pick that up again with my youngest this next go round. But that is one that I definitely do try to do formally because, you know, it's our country and I think it's important for them, essential for them to know. Now, Memoria starts composition a little bit in 3rd grade and then jumps into it in 4th. I've had some students start that young and I've had others start later. If you feel like it might be best to wait, even if it's just a matter of your own bandwidth for teaching, don't worry about waiting. We waited on the full composition program with my middle crew because I just was not in a place to teach it well. So this year, my 6th, 8th, and 9th graders are taking Fable and Narrative, and all of them are doing excellent in the class. So don't worry if you have to wait. Just keep exposing them to good writing and vocabulary through their literature studies and have lots of good books available for free reading. Focus on writing well in the student guides. Those types of things are going to prepare them well for composition when you're able to start it. Now, a lot of people do get concerned because Memoria doesn't have actual packages for 11th and 12th grade. I have graduated 2 students. I have a senior this year and a freshman, and I can tell you by the time you reach 9th grade, you're going to be doing far more customizing than you ever thought because every child is going to have their own end goals, their own path, their own needs. So generally speaking, in high school, we use Memoria Press for literature, classical studies, history, and composition. But I don't necessarily use them in the recommended grades. So, for example, my 9th grader is studying Book of the Ancient Greeks and Book of the Ancient Romans 1 semester each as a classical history course for this year. And then he's doing the Odyssey and the Aeneid for, again, 1 semester each as his literature for the year. But his sister is doing those as well, but she's in 8th grade, so her 9th grade year is going to look different than his does. And that's totally fine. Now, obviously, math is always essential in all grades. And in high school, science, formal science becomes essential. But this is where we actually veer off from Memoria's offerings. 2 of my older kids use Memoria's video text program, but it's just not the right fit for my current crew. So we are using Denison Algebra instead, and we're in the pre-algebra program right now. It's been really phenomenal. I'm very pleased with it. For science, I have used Navari in the past. It is an excellent program, but I feel like it expects, and I've heard this from moms who come from very strong science backgrounds as well. I feel like it expects high schoolers to come out of these classes with almost a college level understanding and knowledge of the concepts. And that's just not essential for being a well-formed person if you're not headed into a STEM field. And we're not. So it's not a good fit for us. And I really feel the same way about MP's biology course, even though it isn't from Navari. So we're using a program called Friendly Biology instead. They also have a chemistry program and a physics program. I'm absolutely loving it. It is presented so well, and my son is doing excellent with it. I've just been really pleased. Now, history is another thing that we customize in high school, and it really just depends on my student. We've used Memoria's medieval history. We've used Catholic Textbook Project. We've used some classes from Homeschool Connections. For my current crew, we're likely going to continue with the Dorothy Mills books from MP, using 1 book per semester. So like we're doing Greeks and Romans this year. Next year we would do Middle Ages and Renaissance. I still have to decide how we'll address modern Europe and America. It'll probably be a Catholic Textbook Project with this crew, but we have some time to decide. But approaching MP this way allows us to really focus in on what's essential and do a few things well. We actually finish our school day in about 4 hours a day. Occasionally my 9th grader has to go a little over that if he has, an extra heavy day, but it's not a frequent thing for him. And then we have time to live life. They can go outside and play and work on projects and hobbies and handwork, and I can take care of the kitchen and get work done, and it's just a really good balance. But it's important to remember that this kind of streamlining is not cheapening your child's education. It's being a good steward, and it's modeling balanced living and how to live a balanced life for your children. And that's something that they're going to be able to carry with them into adulthood. So I hope this explains how we approach MP, and please ask any questions or share further streamlining ideas down in the comments. I'd love to hear from you on that, and I'll see you next time.